Welcome to the J3U University podcast. I'm your host, John Jewett.
And I'm your co-host, Luke Miller.
Our mission is to elevate the physique coaching standard
and to bring the highest level of competitor to the stage.
Let's jump into today's episode. How do you become a top Olympian? 2 weeks ago, I went to Olympia with Shaun Clarida, and we brought an amazing package to stage. And I thought it would be important to interrupt our normal podcast schedule to definitely cover this, as it's something I think we can take a lot away from. I know you listen mainly to our podcast around education, how to prove your own bodybuilding, your own coaching journey. And this absolutely has a ton of application, the things that we can pull out of what worked well for Shaun, bringing his all-time best. And I think even though you don't win the Olympia, Shaun won for multiple reasons of what he was trying to do on stage. So Luke and I today, we're going to interrupt our normal flow, because I know we mentioned how to grow in the off season as a female was going to be our next podcast, but we'll hit that one for next week, everyone. Sorry, ladies. But we're going to need to jump into Olympia and dive a bit more into the topic.
Yeah. And I think it's just, you look at the stage photos, and there was something different about the visuals with Shaun that just really stood out. I think everybody had probably at this point almost handed it to Keon kind of coming in. I think off the back of Shaun's 2024 performance, and not really seeing anybody that could be a contender. He came in and made Keon sweat a bit, and it was really impressive. And I think the shot behind the door, or the peek behind the door, that I think people are going to want is, where did this start with you guys? Because you guys have been back and forth together for a while, and I know there's been a lot done on the training side, and then kind of you coming in and taking over, there was a lot that got changed. So I do want to make sure that we covered that initial big change that set up the peak, because I think a lot of people are going to want to know kind of where that led. But the type of athlete that Shaun is allowed for him to create the change that he did. And I think you're going to have the best perspective on sharing some of those intangibles that are hard to replicate. And if you guys learn anything from Shaun in this process, not only the peaking process that happened, but the things that Shaun does that makes Shaun who he is, right?
Right. And I think part of who Shaun is exactly what brought us to work together to begin with. And that we started working together right after the Arnold. So he did the Arnold. He wanted me to pick up the training piece from there. Mm-hmm. Shaun was previously coached at the time by Matt Jansen. He also had John Meadows previously that had kind of laid out training for him. However, he had just been following Meadows' kind of training program that he laid out a long time ago before his passing. So Shaun didn't really have a lot of oversight in the training piece, and just looking for gaps to fill for himself with this kind of change in coaching. And Stefan was starting to do the nutrition and the actual prep side for Shaun as well. So me coming on board for training, but why would Shaun reach out? I think that's something unique of Shaun himself, is that knowing him, his main focus is always on, what do I need to do to get better? That's all that matters. And he's not emotionally tied to any system, anything that's dogmatic, that I have to train to failure in every set, or I have to take X type of compound, or I have to peak in this certain way. The process he's on board with is the one that leads to the goal. And I think that's a huge thing to take away, is if you're an athlete or a coach, is that it's so easy to be dogmatic and take up, emotional ties to certain approaches, certain exercises, certain nutrition or drug pieces. But ultimately what matters is, are you doing whatever it takes to get to your goal? And what that path looks like should be the one that you're on. And I think that is where Shaun's mindset is. Within that type of mindset, it is someone that has to be very open to learn and a humility about themselves. And I think that's a great embodiment of a great champion, is that Shaun is so willing to learn and change his ways for the goal that it makes him highly coachable. And I think some people take that as weakness and vulnerability to be able to have your ways challenged, but that's a strength. And that's an extremely strong point for Shaun,
Mm.
that he's okay just laying down things that he's done that have worked in the past if there's a better way. But absolutely, like, Shaun has to have the respect of that person, to take that opinion. And I think that goes to another strong point, I think, of Shaun that we should take away, that he only relies on opinions of people that are in the circle that matter.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of noise out there. Shaun can do a great job of blocking it out. And you see him, man, 4X t-shirt. He's just blue collar in the trenches, just doing the work. So he can block out the noise and listen to those who matter. So I think I know we haven't got, that's already like a lot of information, not getting much into like
The peak.
The actual nuts and bolts of like peaking. But I think without those components, it makes it really hard to have the success that we did have.
Yeah, and I think like even just like I went and trained with Shaun, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, and maybe it was longer than that, maybe 6 weeks. Um, and he had said you had messaged him like, hey, you should link up with Luke, whatever. And like I come in and like looked over his sessions you had sent me and everything, and he's like, all right, help me make this as best as I could. And he just like immediately just like handed it like, hey, like, what do you think we need to do in order to make this the best? And it was really cool. Like we made some small changes with like activation, picked a better fly variation that like fit him. And it was awesome to see his face light up as his pecs were just like firing with every rep, and he was getting a lot of stimulus out of it. And I think it's like bringing you on board fully, like fast forwarding to where you completely took everything over. Like that trust had been bought in so in depth that I know the changes you had to go in and make were executed on immediately. And I want to let you kind of run through some of them, but I know a big one was probably kind of around the activity metrics. I know there was probably a pretty big change in activity and like that burden of activity of how that got executed. But what do you think the key pillars were, like the massive changes in the plans that started to initiate that process of bringing the best Shaun to stage? Because honestly, I think that far out is where a lot of the changes that set up what you did on Olympia week.
Yeah. And through Shaun's, like, I followed this all along, right? He's still sending me his visuals along the way. And Shaun would ask me a lot of questions that were starting to get outside of the scope of kind of training. I want to say this ahead, like the right coach for the right athlete, right? Like right now we kind of had like me and Stefan doing bits and pieces, and it is kind of nice to have someone that just oversees everything. But for what Shaun needed, he needed more oversight. And I was the one to be able to provide that. And we just connected well. The relationship was there. And I think that's so important to really be able to pull the most out of an athlete and pull the most out of a coach. And I've been like, towards Shaun's like 2024 Olympia, like if you don't have attention to your athlete, like so much can fall through the gap. And Shaun is someone that, man, he puts everything in. He puts his heart and soul into this. Like it's everything. It for me, I knew it was going to be saving Shaun from his own self of like not working so hard on things.
Yeah.
But I see Shaun as like one of the greatest bodybuilders in the world. And to not have, sorry, I get like emotional about it.
No, you're good.
To not have a coach feel the same when that person's giving you the trust and responsibility over something that means the world to them, to their family. It's so disrespectful to me.
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like because I've been in that position. So for me, for Shaun, and knowing how he embodies bodybuilding and what it means to him, I'm all in. Like it's someone so easy to stand behind and want to take up that goal and dream of as your own. And I think that's important from a coach aspect, is like, do you feel that way about the athletes that you coach? Because I would pour everything in, and I did, like for his prep and for the peak that I could. And I think that's another reason why it was so successful, is because I would go the extreme to whatever it would take, just like Shaun would. Like I could match him on that level.
Mm.
And I think they pulled a lot out of me of where I need to head with my coaching and who I need to coach and what that relationship should really be.
Mm.
And that I can't be half in on coaching, or the athletes that are half in on their process, they're just not ones for me. Sorry, that was a bit of a more of a tangent, Luke. I didn't even answer what you wanted to ask me,
It's
but
okay. It's okay.
I
Let the passion take over, man. That's why we're here, right?
want to share, because it's just like that emotional piece for us was so strong when I first had the call with him and his wife. This was right around, I think we were 4.5 weeks out from the show. And like, I'm passionate like I am now. And like, they were in tears as well, because they've been in such a bad spot, and feeling that stress relief finally was what's there. And the peace that Shaun was going to have of like trusting someone that could fully take over the process. And so that was one thing that already started improving the process for Shaun, was that there was a huge stress relief, as there was so much unknown in his variables of he was having to make decisions. So he was given like X amount of cardio to do. And there wasn't, when he was trying to explain it to me, there wasn't a lot of direction. Like, what does that cardio look like? Do you do that on the step mill? Is it on the treadmill? Like, when is it done? How do you track the effort level? And also questions around, Shaun, what do you do during the day? Like, do you work the railroad, and are you pounding spikes in? Are you working a desk job 9 to 5? Do you coach people? Like, what do you do during the day? And Shaun's a full-time bodybuilder, right? He's like, so I do cardio, I train, and then the most of the day he does content, right? And rests and recovers. Just like I would when I used to bodybuild. I would not used to bodybuild. When I had preps that I wasn't tracking activity.
Right.
You know, and I ended up doing like 3,000 steps a day. So activity was very, very low. We could say Shaun was sedentary outside of his like direct cardio and training that he would do.
Yep.
Which, when you look at his diet that he was on pretty low food, and to pull down, which doesn't give you a lot of fuel for training. So the main thing that I wanted to change for Shaun, and there wasn't huge gaps around like what you were doing with nutrition and macro setup, but the main thing was I want to get Shaun moving more throughout the day and decrease direct hard cardio work, so where I can raise the recovery ceiling to provide better training. Because if I can get better training for Shaun, that's better muscle retention. And it's going to be more of weight loss derived from fat over just getting a smaller version of him, which we've seen in the previous year. He's just a small version of Shaun, very conditioned, but gosh, like 8-9 pounds down. So step one was like, all right, Shaun, like, can we track steps? And he was not on board with the step thing. And I will say, like, don't get me wrong, Shaun will execute, but there still needs to be some buy-in and understanding of like, why are we doing these things, and will it actually work? It's just so far from what's been done. And it's kind of funny because he was, I got him doing like walking after meals, and he was like, John, like I'm taking 5 showers a day. Like, this isn't going to work. And I was like, why are you taking 5 showers a day, Shaun? So like Shaun was a previous wrestler. He's an athlete. And I think that's also why he knows how to work hard to his own demise. Like, he wants to work hard in everything that he does. Yeah. So he would go in his garage. We're in Texas. So we're still in the high 90-degree weather with like a hoodie on, like an Eskimo, doing treadmill. So it was like
sweating his balls off.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't want a heat stress on top of our like training and cardio that we were doing. I want this to be like low effort. And it's a hard thing to feel like this should feel easy. It's like, it should feel easy. So I actually got him to move his treadmill into the house and just walk after meals, and like digestion was improving. That was another thing. And also his legs starting freshening up. Like, he didn't feel like his legs were beat up and heavy all the time because he was on the step mill. And so just getting him walking was a big thing throughout the day. And that was some of the major things that was able to drive kind of the last bit of fat loss off. And he just kept improving in his training, his lifts. And then with us, like connecting with him and like showing him how the session should be, started pulling more out of every set and doing less volume. Actually, like we did a leg session together, and we smoked quads in like 5 sets. It's like, we don't need this other exercise anymore. Like, so you're getting more out of less, and recovery ceiling is increased. That all will create like a really good physique on stage. A few other like nuts and bolts things change wise, like looking over like the PED layout. There's a lot of things that were driving poor recovery with like, there's a lot of estrogen management. Like estrogen was probably rock bottom. So starting to pull back on some of that and raise estrogen back up, which again, old school mentality, right? Like lower estrogen, that's going to make you hard and dry. It's like, no, like it's just going to make your joints hurt and connective tissue achy. And he was starting to get some knee issues. So that improved in that piece. Also, like the it was like lowering like some of the like trenbolone, right? Like didn't need to be that high because training performance was now increasing just off improving the big basics. So we don't need these like strong compounds in place. Also was about to come in was like stacking oral steroids together. I was like, dude, training's in a great spot. You're getting hard. Like we don't need all that. So it was very much a simpler design in PDs and removing a ton of supplements, because Shaun, like through Matt, through like other things we pick up along the way, being like supplement junkies ourselves, through Stefan, through, you know, all these things, it created kind of a big supplement regimen. So I was like, show me everything you take. And there's a lot of things where I'm like, I can probably simplify this more. I'm like, Shaun, why is this in place? It's like, man, I've been taking that for years. Like, it's just part of the regimen. And it's pretty easy how those things can kind of accumulate. So just stripping back some of the supplements as well and trying to simplify down to the basics of what's really working here. But through those changes is what, you know, brought Shaun down. We were 11 days out when I'm like, all right, I'm pretty sure fat loss is over here. And we can stop here and you bring up anything you want to bring up, Luke. But what I did for Shaun, and why I think a lot of people might miss the mark when taking on a client kind of last minute, is only coaching in the moment at times. And what I mean by that is just looking at that check-in alone and trying to decide if someone's where they should be, because you have variance in lighting and what they're looking at, and you really want to see how does that compare to what they look like on stage. So I had Shaun send me his check-ins from 10 days out, and then also 7 days out when he was out in Vegas with the similar light setup. And then also looking at his stage picks and how that translated from his 7-day out last year.
Yeah, from the previous
And so
year.
comparing across all these, you know, I could see like, you know, Shaun was he was like 182, 183 in the morning versus the previous year at that same time point being like 174, just as lean. But man, the fullness was, I don't even say fullness. I don't want to be alluded here, the muscle, because I think he got over dieted the previous years, was just so much more prominent. And another thing, well, I'm going to stop there because I'm going to get into like actual starting the peak of why I did what I did. But thanks everyone for tuning in to today's podcast. Are you struggling to hit your peak on show day? Feeling lost in the off season? Upgrade your coaching game with J3 University. Our program covers everything from off season to contest prep to peak week, all based from real client results. Along with our comprehensive physique curriculum, you'll also get access to our 4 rooms with our J3U team to answer any questions you have, and live Q&A sessions to further your coaching and athlete experience. We are the source of education for top IFBB pros and coaches. Join us to elevate the coaching standard at J3 University. Let's get back to today's podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think I know you did some like food variety changes too. I think to the diet plan, you brought some like food,
fruits and things in,
diversity
veggies.
things, which I think is underrated for like just kind of the nutritional taking care of the micros as long into a prep as you possibly can. There's a lot of like secondary benefits. We won't make this podcast about that, but one of the things that I think people should, because I've done this quite a few times with a few other athletes. I did this earlier in the year with Jess, right? I took on a prep about 4.5 weeks out. She went from like 15th at Chicago with the old coach to 4th at the Texas Pro, is like the consistent communication. And I know you did this, and this is the last piece I want to touch on before we get into the prep. I know your check-in frequency with them was pretty high, and you were making sure that like every couple of days, like progress was happening. It was moving in the direction you needed to. It wasn't pulling them too fast or too slow. I think that's a last little piece that I think y'all nailed, because I remember when I was there when we were recording the Hourglass program, shameless plug, we were looking at like some of those side-by-sides from last year to this year, but like just the amount of updates that you were getting while I was there alone is like a part of that process too.
Yeah, I wanted to get on board as fast as possible. And so we initially started with every other day, because like 4 weeks out, it still didn't make sense to be like everyday check-ins. I need the plan to play out a little bit,
Yeah.
but I also don't want anything to move too quickly on me to where I miss it. So every other day made sense, but very quickly we went to every day, and it's not a big deal for Shaun. He's getting up and doing posing anyway.
Yeah.
And that's also when we were starting to like make tweaks on posing well. And there's a lot to bring out through that. And it wasn't, I went out to see Shaun. He was a little over 2 weeks out, where I actually get my hands on and actually start tweaking some poses. And
Yeah.
you know, you just had gaps that got missed. And maybe it's through like just not thinking to do it right. Like I wanted to explore everything, every variable possible. And just through like self-coaching of myself, right? Like it's on me, you know? So
Yeah.
I have to ask, like, why am I doing things? How things work? Is that meaningful? Is it not? And so with Shaun, I want to do the same thing. And that part of it was like looking at posing. Like he always hits his side chest with his left arm. I was like, how does the right arm look? And he did that and looked so much more natural, and he rotated easier. I'm like, let's do that. So it was just like, yeah, just kind of tearing through his entire bodybuilding life, all the variables, and seeing where we could really optimize it and make improvements. But
let's get into the peak so that we can
let's go
discuss it.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? About a week out or a little bit further in?
No. 1 week out is decent. I mean, I'll just say that 11 to the 10-day out mark was of like making the decision of, hey, fat loss time is now over. And it was from there just kind of bringing Shaun up to a baseline of a close to a maintenance amount of food,
right,
before I could get him to Vegas, which he was going to be in Vegas at 8 days out. And so that's kind of, I was like waiting for him to kind of get out there before I was really going to push anything any farther out, because of flight and stabilization in that piece. But another part I want to bring up around the check-in process is, before leading into that mark, I also started looking at Shaun at a few other times of the day, because I was trying to pre-plan some of the peak, not pre-plan of laid out, but pre-plan in my mind what might need to happen off of what he's done and what he's reported to me, because he was bringing up that like on show day, like they've usually cut water pretty hard on Shaun. He stays full, and that's a unique thing with Shaun. Like he wakes up and he looks like he's fully full blown, yeah, blasting full. So I knew like, and Shaun was on 150 grams of carbs for a bit, so I was like, he probably doesn't need a lot of food to get full, and but seeing him with a few meals and fluids, I saw pretty quick, like Shaun also doesn't lose a lot of condition, even though he keeps getting fuller. What more is the line cross is like the amount of food and fluid that might get him full. When does it take a hit on his waistline? And that's like the big crossover point when you lose that X-frame piece. So I kind of had already pre-planned that Shaun was not going to be one that we're going to need to use like a diuretic on. Absolutely not. And that a change for him was going to be having food fluid on show day.
Yeah.
And so getting into the peak here, and when I got out there, was starting to try to map out day by day what would show day need to look like for him,
right,
and what was going to be a good operating body weight range to put him on stage at.
You can replicate. You know the times that you're putting him on stage for both days, or for both times, I should say. And so there's certainly a buy-in process when you start to see those visuals throughout peak week, and I'm sure that happened. Is like each day you're mapping it out and you're looking at the visuals, X food and X fluid happening. It's like, man, look, this is clearly way better than this, and it's still like extremely sharp, much fuller. I remember some of the fasted to like 1 meals in photos you sent me. It was like massive difference.
Yeah. Just to give the big overarch here, just because to dive into every day is extensive.
Yeah.
But Shaun basically started his week at 250 grams of carbs, around 50 grams of fat, and 260 grams of protein a day, 4.3 liters of fluid every day, like little over a gallon. And sodium was just baseline of a quarter teaspoon of salt with all his meals, 5 meals a day. That was kind of our start point. Within peak week, I quickly moved him to 6 meals, and 5 meals was great for prep to like manage hunger and have him fast longer in the morning. But I wanted to have 2 smaller meals before going on stage, which was going to probably be around 11 a.m. And he was normally getting his first meal in by like 9:30. So I wanted a meal closer to when he woke up, and then be able to have the opportunity for another assessment point and another meal in on show day, and have these meals be smaller so I can manage his waist better. And then that titrated up across the week till being about 600 grams of carbs one day out. Also scaling back his cardio, cardio's walking, but it was still like the morning we had him at an incline at 2.6 miles per hour on the treadmill. That eventually scaled back down to flat walking, down to 2 miles per hour, a total of 70 minutes down to 40 minutes of walking. And then on course one day out, he's so busy that we don't even track it, right? So it's more of like just walking to keep digestion moving throughout the day. So that's kind of how we scaled like macros and tapered steps, and fluid held throughout the entire week. And why was food scaling up? Because, Shaun was probably just indirectly increasing NEAT, through lower fatigue. Training was improving. We did have some high output days that kind of threw some wrenches in there for us, especially one day out. It just really sucks for 212. It's like he had the press conference, which is like 2.5 hours long, then tanning, and then the athlete meet and greet is like 2 hours at nighttime. So there's like points even one day out. I can't even assess them. It's just like, here's a pre-planned meal. Let's roll with that. And I think issues with the peak, I didn't anticipate Shaun to ramp up that quickly and need that much food, because ideally my thought was like, I'm going to load him up earlier. He'll start waking up heavier, then I could scale back food. And I was pretty cautious with moving him up because he's coming from 250 grams of carbs. And so I was thinking like, hey, we're going to get to like 350. He'll be good and hold there, but he's sped up a little bit. So like just retrospectively, I would have been more aggressive with them earlier in the week.
Yep.
And then pulled back. And so anyway, that was kind of like the zoom out of the entire peak week. I just want to say, let's go ahead and fast forward on like show day.
Yeah.
And where we see Shaun with like, if you want to body weight wise, like with removing veggies and also scaling back protein, like I do no protein on show day. He ended up waking around 180.8 around it. That is what it was.
It's the exact weight, actually.
I want to say around, because a lot of times around waking at around 181 was kind of the goal here. And if I the working range for Shaun was like, if he went up to 183, that was acceptable, but the comfortable was probably 180, 182 or a little over 181. So anyway, he wakes up on show day at 180.8. And I check in on with him, and we have like, it's dark out, so he can't pose in front of this natural light, which makes him look really good. We had to use kind of this shitty kitchen light that's yellow, and he saw his visuals. I could see it on his face that he wasn't impressed, and it made him look kind of washed out. And so he told me, he's like, hey, I really do well with not a lot of food or water. Like he pretty much didn't want food or water is what he was telling me. And so it took a moment of like, Shaun, like every day of this week, we've seen food and fluid bring you up in body weight, and you only look better. We know this works. This is what we need to do. He's like, all right. He's like, yeah, to just like digest the bet. Because that's been Shaun's peak for years, right? Like that's worked and won him Olympias. Like, so it takes just a moment to flip that switch on. We need to do this differently this go round. And that was a big change for him. Shaun's never had the amount of food or fluid that I've given him on show day, which wasn't a lot. We were probably, I put a bigger meal in first.
Yeah.
It was around 100 grams of carbs and 15 grams of fat, which off my previous day's data is what I know like pulls him up, because I wanted to pull him up closer to that 182 mark. And then I kept his same start of fluid rate, which we put in 800 mils. That was right before he was about to then be on stage. And then I saw him backstage, and all we really needed was just a little top off to keep him holding throughout the show, which that we use our top secret J3U, pre-show day pump up
combo,
right? Rice Krispie treat and honey, just and salt. But that's what we end up doing. And then between rounds, he would hit like a honey packet for his like quick glucose just to sustain him. And then he had like some sips of water. So it probably ended up being maybe a liter of fluid in, and then maybe 145 grams of carbs within that prejudging window. And he nailed it. He looked amazing. And coming off stage, he was still like 180.6. So I would assume, because I got backstage for a moment. Someone was like, let me back there. And then the real person was like, you can't be back here. So I was like, Shaun, quick, like come over here, like strip down. Let me see you. And so I couldn't weigh him. I just looked at visuals real quick. I couldn't even take pictures. It was just so quick. But I would assume he was probably a little over 181 where we wanted him at. But he looked nailed on prejudge. It was
really so good, dude. When he walked out, it was like the perfect combination of like peak and the glaze and like everything was just so on.
Yeah, Shaun uses that like quick bronzer that Protan has. It's like a goop, and it is a tanner and a glaze within one. It works great for like darker skin guys. I've used it because I saw Terrence use it at Legion. I was like, I want what Terrence had, because it looked awesome. It made me look like I jumped in like a puddle of mud. So anyway, Shaun always used that and makes him look awesome, because a lot of guys look kind of flat out there because they didn't have enough oil on. But that stuff, man, sticks. So anyway, his all around look just was nailed. Like, it was the goals that he wanted was to not just be a blowout by Keon, to actually really give him a run. And the confidence that Shaun had was tremendous. We both truly believed that he could win, and that was definitely challenged. Challenged Keon that Shaun could win.
I thought it was funny, like some of the posts that came out after of like, is this actual muscle or is this? Because the change was so drastic. I was just laughing my butt off.
I know. Is Shaun using site enhancements? Like, it's like,
no, Shaun's a freak. Just get over it. So good, man.
And that final goal of Shaun's was just to be his best, to reinstate that he's not just the Masters competitor that's fading out and someone to not be talked about, that he's a real threat and is only going to be improving. So anyway, it did the rest of the show. I don't need to dive too much in the details here. We put back another meal that was about the same as meal one, brought back some fluids, and then tapered it back down into finals, which I probably would have used a little less fluid into finals. I think he was a little fuller in finals, but I didn't like as much. I don't know if it was just shots that I saw or what, but anyway, I think his waist could have been like pulled down a bit more. It could just be the shot I saw, but anyway, I would have been a little bit more reserved in that piece. But it's tough, man. They go on. It's like 11 p.m. It's not really ideal at all. So they're the last ones to close out Friday night. So yeah, to keep someone on that long, but to our credit though, I think he was very much close to his prejudged look. I mean, I'm hard on myself, but you could argue that it was damn near the same. I think Keon improved and closed much more of that gap for finals than we had the ability to prove him upon, because Shaun was like, man, he was really bang on for prejudge. So it's not like we need to bring him back better. Just like we just need to keep him as good as we have him. Yeah. But Keon had a lot of room where he could improve with, just bring that harder, fuller look. And, he did that. So that, along with Keon's other, great features that he brings, sealed the deal.
Yeah.
100%. But for us, it was still a win.
Still a win. Well, I think you absolutely nailed it, man. I think you should be proud of the work you guys put on. It's going to be very interesting to see what another year's worth of work does.
Absolutely. And probably by the time this podcast comes out, he would have already done his open show, which is he's doing Mexico.
Yeah.
So, you probably already know the result as a listener. But yeah, anyway, goals is for Shaun, just continue to build a legacy and us to do that together and take back the Olympia title next year in the 212.
Love it. What we got? We know what we got next week. Now that we've interrupted our schedule.
What we're doing. It's going to be back to the females on how to grow as a female. So that, ladies, sorry if you had to listen to us blah about the Olympia and bodybuilding, but we will have that one for you when that comes back. And anyway, be a Shaun Clarida.
Love it.
Be focused on the goal. High effort in every area. Year round, nonstop. There's no off switch, right, Luke?
There we go. Now we're talking. There's a tagline. There we go.
So anyway, everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.